What's up? My name's Glueboy, welcome back to the channel, and today is finally the day. I've made fun of him a lot because as a Rogal Dorn fanboy, I am obligated to do so. Today we're talking about Perturabo, the giant metal man-child. Which, I will say, as much shit as I give him, which I give him a lot, because his personality is shit, this man better have like an augmented spine since he carried the entire Heresy on his back. He is insanely competent, and I can understand why people like him. I just don't. But anyways, let's just jump right into it. So, like every Primarch, Perturabo was scattered into space, and he landed on the planet of Olympia, which when he popped out of his pod, we don't actually know what happened. Mainly because Perturabo himself has zero memories of this time. Apparently, this child, looks around 8 to 9 years old, wandered around Olympia for a good long while just building shit and fighting monsters. He has zero memory of this because in his mind, his memories only start one day when he's climbing up a cliff face and boom, a bunch of city guards from Lycos are just looking for him. Because the king of Lycos, the tyrant of Lycos, Demakos, heard the stories of this wonder child and sent the guards to find him, which then brought the child Perturabo to his palace and gave him some tests. Gave him some tests in actual military, blacksmithing, science. For example, he asked him to prove his worth when it came to metallurgy, and he created one of the best swords ever, because he's a Primarch. But then, seeing this, Demakos offered Perturabo a choice. Hey, you're clearly destined for great things. What if I adopted you as my kid? So Perturabo accepted because there really wasn't an alternative, and boom, he was part of the family. Which, in all case, a man who goes by the title of, the Tyrant of Lycos was actually a pretty decent dad, and he actually cared a lot about Perturabo. The problem is Perturabo didn't reciprocate those feelings at all because he was kind of a dickhead. A dickhead with reasons for being like that, though. Because every Primarch is born with some special powers. And Perturabo is no exception, obviously. And his powers are kind of the shit out of the stick. The first one is a bit more fun when you kind of look at it, as he has a amazing memory and a genius level intellect, where for Perturabo, it's super easy to learn something. He can look at a flower and analyze it slightly and immediately knows how it works, how it functions, all that shit. Picks up a book, pages through it, mastering the subject. He learns things super quickly, and that's the problem, because he doesn't actually get that burst of inspiration or that burst of endorphins when you finally cross that threshold and learn a skill. Because he just masters it instantly or learns this information instantly, so he doesn't get that joy of discovery, leaving him a little bitter. And then you have the other one, where Perturabo has a preternatural sense of the Eye of Terror, the giant rift in space-time made by Slaanesh when she was born. He's aware of its presence at all times and feels it watching him at all times. So Perturabo goes around his days feeling like there's something staring at him and watching and judging him 24/7. Constant visions, closes his eyes, and all he sees is the gaping purple vortex in space. Understandable why you'd be a little bit maladjusted, to be honest, which made Perturabo is just really slow to trust people. And he's also just super bitter, which brings into his personality problems, because Perturabo is the kind of guy who refuses to tell you how he feels. If you make him upset, he's just gonna walk away in the corner, silently seethe, and then just accept what you told him to do. Because, for example, his father, his adopted father, wanted him to help lead some military engagements with the other places on Olympia. Because Olympia is a tumultuous place, full of civil wars, coups, political intrigue, Game of Thrones shit, but they're all Greek togas. So obviously he wanted his demigod level son to help out. Perturabo kind of just wanted to sit in his attic room, brood, and make up cool building designs and engineering feats. So he didn't want to do war. but he was told, hey, I'd like you to be a general. And he cannot say no, because that's a sign of weakness in his head. So instead, he seethed, got upset at the order, and then just said, fine, I'll just do every war. I'll conquer everything. Is that what you want me to do so bad? I'll just take over the planet. So he did, because he's a Primarch, so he's an excellent general. However, interestingly enough, Perturabo had no wish of leadership. He fully served his dad and was actually pretty down to give all these holdings to his dad so we can go back to his attic and like draw. And then eventually this leads us to the Emperor coming down, which Perturabo always had a sense that like something was up. He knew he wasn't like naturally born. He knew he had some greater purpose in life and was built by something different. But when the Emperor came down, he was like, I knew it. I knew I was better. I knew I was a Primarch. Fuck you, Dad. I'm going with him now. And he fully pledges loyalty to the Emperor, throwing his adopted dad in front of a bus. And this would lead to some problems because a few years after Perturabo left, his dad, Tyrannolycos, decided to try to betray the Imperium, which got him killed in the process and kind of threw Olympia in political turmoil with a power vacuum. But we'll get to that later because it comes up again. But now Perturabo was part of the Imperial expedition for the Great Crusade. And at first things first, he got his legion, the Iron Warriors, as he then named them, because Perturabo was a big fan of iron. It's just a big thing. There's a quote in the books where I'll just put it up right here because I don't remember it offhand, but I think this quote sums up his personality really well. Just liking iron because it's honest and gold is just kind of a liar's metal. So first things first with his men, Perturabo went through the records of the Legion because this man is all about pragmatism, efficiency, and absolute loyalty. He values those things, and that's what you'll do under his military service. So first, obviously, he had to see where the Legion actually started. And he found it lacking because they kind of fucked up in one military engagement and got a lot of their people killed. That and the fact that the Iron Warriors in that specific era weren't big fans of like adapting their tactics to other situations. Something I'll get into in a few days when I have my video on the Iron Warriors out. But Perturabo decided this wouldn't do. His legion had to be punished right when he got him. So he decided to go with the absolute classic method of military restructuring as popularized by the Romans, decimation. He put every single one of his soldiers in groups of 10, had them draw lots. One would draw the death token, and the other 9 would beat them to death with their bare hands, which immediately kind of set the stage of discipline for his legion, and they got to go out and explore the galaxy for the Great Crusade, and then proceeded to get every single shit job. Because Perturabo's story in this era of the Great Crusade is one of constant bitterness. This man, all he really wanted to do was build cool aqueducts, build fun palaces, do all that. But no, he wasn't selected. His brother Rogal Dorn was selected to build the Imperial Palace, which Rogal Dorn has a lot of the same skill sets as Perturabo. They're both masters at like siege and fortification. They're both very stoic, headstrong people. Like they're very similar. But there's a big rivalry there because Perturabo is super jealous that Rogal Dorn got every good deal. Which, as much as it's like a Emperor at a Texas speech device meme, I do think there's some serious stock in the idea that Perturabo wasn't chosen to build the Imperial Palace because he wouldn't have made it bright, shining gold. He would have probably left it like unpainted metal, which isn't a pretty looking palace. The Emperor's all golden clad. He can't just have iron be the aesthetic. But this bitterness would come at a major point in this battle against the Hrud. He was ordered to go conquer these Hrud-controlled planets. And these planets just so happen to be very strategically negligent. There was no actual reason to take these planets over. It was a sector that was pointless to control and all of that. That and the Hrud fucking suck to fight. First of all, they look horrific and awful. And they are, because the Hrud have this natural ability to distort time around them. They have like an aura that speeds up time. When you're looking at a Hrud, you kind of just see an atmospheric shimmer as all the molecules around them are just zipping around at Mach speed. That, and they can control it. Because say, for example, you're fighting a Hrud, they can just like point at you and then speed you up. The Hrud would just age you to death in fractions of a second, or just being around them a lot made you physically age. Again, Hammers of Olympia, they actually describe what it's like fighting the Hrud. And some of them, these Astartes, who are meant to be ageless beings, are like, I feel like I'm getting older. It's harder to breathe, I'm coughing, which I shouldn't. Moving is just slightly more difficult. Like, they're awful because of that. And eventually the battle would end, but only because the Hrud set off a, like, time entropy bomb that took out themselves. And, like, most of the Iron Warrior. Also, a bomb was so powerful, it accelerated the stage of which the sun that was nearby, like, turning it into, like, a red giant stage of its life. Insane powerful. But it doesn't end there. Because right after the Hrud, Perturabo, very pissed off having to be part of this, and now his legion was crippled, found out Olympia was in open revolt. Because the power vacuum, I said. So, very pissed off Perturabo went back to Olympia and decided, it worked one time, I'll try it again. And he announced to the planet, hey y'all, two choices. Either decimation or I kill all of you. And surprisingly, the planet chose the latter. So Perturabo went around and destroyed Olympia. He killed 5 million people and then took the rest as slaves. And in the process also, killed his adopted sister, this girl who was the only person Perturabo ever really trusted. But when he saw her for the first time in a while, she immediately insulted him and said, this is all your fault, you've ruined Olympia, where he got really mad and choked her to death. Which then immediately he's like, ah shit, I might have gone a little too far. The Emperor might be a little pissed at this. I don't know if I can recover this. But someone came right out of the woodworks being very supportive. Good old Horace Lupercal. He was like, hey, Perturabo, actually, you made a great decision. I like how decisive you are. Hey, by the way, I'm starting a little fun new idea called betraying Dad. Do you want in? And Perturabo, already super bitter at the Imperium and the very loyal people in it, went along pretty quickly. So there's a bit more to talk about with Perturabo. There's other little moments I can mention. I'm not going to go super in depth because don't got the time. That's not what the series is. So instead, I'm going to give you a little rundown of the rest of his little storyline in the Horus Heresy and then right after. Because first things first, he went on an expedition with Fulgrim into the Eye of Terror. Notable because this is a thing he's been kind of scared of his entire life. But they're all full traitors, and Fulgrim lied to Perturabo and said, yo, there's some really cool relic that we can use to, like, kill Dad. Come along with me, I need your help, brother. Which is notable, this whole encounter, mainly for my favorite reason, as there is a quote of an exchange they had where Perturabo really let Fulgrim know where shit stood between them. Perturabo reached out and placed the Warhound on the workbench in front of Fulgrim. I have no interest in your toys, he said. Listen, insisted Perturabo. Fulgrim sighed and leaned in close to the table, turning his head to listen. Perturabo's hand flashed out and gripped Fulgrim's hair. With sudden force, he slammed his brother's face into the Warhound. The wondrous automaton shattered into 1,000 pieces as Fulgrim's head crunched into the pitted surface of the workbench. Bone broke and blood splattered. Cogs flew, tiny springs and gear levers spun off. Fulgrim cried out in painful shock as his captain surged forward. The iron circle smashed them aside with wrecking ball blows from their energy shields, and before the Emperor's children could recover, the Trident were upon them. Perturabo hauled Fulgrim over to the workbench, scattering drawings, fragile tools, schematics, and half-finished sketches. Though Fulgrim was fully armored, Perturabo lifted him by the neck with no more effort than lifting a mortal man. Fulgrim spat blood, and Perturabo slammed his fist into his brother's face, snapping his head back with the crack of bone. Fulgrim's eyes blazed black, and his face glimmered with a reptilian malice. He started to speak, but Perturabo didn't give him the chance. Like a fist fighter going for the kill, he battered his brother's face with pistoning jabs until he had him backed against an iron column. He pinned Fulgrim in place and drew back his free hand to reach for Forgebreaker. The hammer rose, but Perturabo left the blow hanging. Fulgrim's perfect face was a wet meat wound, leaking blood, snot, and tears.
His breath was hoarse and clogged with phlegm and broken teeth. His eyes were swollen shut. He tried to speak, but Perturabo cut him off again. "No, brother," he said. "I am speaking now, and you will listen to me. I have bitten my tongue and allowed you to bring my legion into this place," said Perturabo. "I have followed your lead in all things. I have listened to your tall tales and allowed you to set the pace of this expedition." Perturabo leaned forward and said, "That ends now." He released Fulgrim, who held himself erect in the face of Perturabo's cold anger. "Your warriors have no discipline. Monsters fight your battles, and you have allowed an entire vessel to be sacrificed in the name of vanity. But no more. From here onwards, I am in charge, and for the duration of this mission, your legion is mine to command. Your warriors will obey my orders. They will follow my lead, and they will do nothing except by my command. If you agree to that, then we will continue on into the Eye of Terror and finish this together. If you don't, then I will take my legion and leave you here. Do you understand?" Fulgrim nodded and swallowed a mouthful of blood. "I understand, brother," he said, his voice a gargled, mangled mockery of its once perfect cadence. "I understand that you humble me and expect me to swallow my pride, to be your lapdog." "I don't need a damn lapdog," snarled Perturabo. "I need an equal." "But I'm not your equal, brother," said Fulgrim, grinning through his bloodied features, as though his outburst of violence was somehow amusing. "I surpass you in every way. And yet, I'm the one holding the hammer," said Perturabo.
Of course, this whole expedition was a lie, because Fulgrim actually wanted to go right to the Eye of Terror, to a very pivotal point where Slaanesh was born, so he could reach demonhood. As he put it, he wanted to reach apotheosis and ascend. Obviously, Perturabo was not happy about this information when he learned it, mainly because Fulgrim decided the best point to ascend to demonhood was right when him and his men and the Iron Warriors were all fighting a bunch of Eldar Wraith Guards and decided to slip away mid-combat, leaving everyone just kind of out and open, which Perturabo followed and obviously was very upset, and him and Fulgrim fought. A big duel happened, and eventually Perturabo got one really solid hit in with his special hammer, Forgebreaker, which actually was the one Ferrus Manus had, notable because it's the weapon Fulgrim crafted for Ferrus Manus, which then he also killed Ferrus Manus. But anyways, this blow killed Fulgrim's mortal body, but allowed him to ascend to demonhood, where he rose up as the big snake demon we all know and love today, told Perturabo, "Yo, I reached demonhood, shit's sick. Anyway, peace," and disappeared, just leaving him and his boys, including the Emperor's children, out to the wind. Which then, here's a fun little detail. Perturabo's involvement in the Siege of Terra is really funny to me because, again, Perturabo carried the Horus Heresy. All of the serious logistical planning was primarily Perturabo, like the Drop Site Massacre, all him, which crippled 3 legions of Space Marines. And he tried to do the same for the Siege of Terra. The problem is everyone was so chaos infused, they were just insane. You had the angry missile of Angron flying down, armies led by Khornate berserkers who know nothing but charging headfirst into the enemy, a bunch of demons who is impossible to control. So Perturabo saw all this, was like, fuck this, I'm out. Because this information, okay, so Perturabo essentially was in that situation of, say you were playing like fucking Valorant or something, and one player is carrying the team. Everyone is all 0 and 10. He's at the top of the leaderboard. It's fuck this isn't worth my time. It just rage quits. And he leaves. I find that really funny. And then I guess I need to talk about the main thing, the thing that probably has already been commented when I mentioned Rogal Dorn, the Iron Cage incident. So the Iron Cage incident, after, Horus's death, Perturabo got to work on building the Iron Cage, or the Eternal Fortress. And then he taunted Rogal Dorn to come and get him. Hey, you're the master of siegecraft and fortifications, come and get me. Which Rogal Dorn accepted because he had some other problems at the time, and invaded this planet to invade this fortress. And it was a fucking bloodbath, because this fortress was built purely to be absolutely horrific to siege. Massive trench lines, horrific traps. Traps and fortifications are built to separate the Imperial Fist to the point where a couple days into the siege, most Imperial Fists were fighting on their own, like individually, using mountains of their brothers' corpses as cover. And then, worst part of this, actually sieging the fortress, it wasn't a real fortress. It was another trap for a killing field. There's no ground to take. This entire fortress is designed to kill Rogal Dorn and his men, which only was saved because Rabute Gilman came down with the Ultramarines and evened the playing field and actually saved the day. Which, of course, and this isn't a cope, I'm not coping here, I have a feeling Rogal Dorn let Perturabo win just as, like, you know, a show of force. I'm not struggling to come up with a reason right now. He let him win. But yeah, that's Perturabo. I mean, not much else to mention. He's still out and kicking. I mean, he's helping Vashtor, the Archfane, out, because apparently they're buddies since they both do a lot of forging. And other than that, like, apparently Perturabo is a demon Primarch now, which is kind of lame, to be honest, since Perturabo and his boys hate demons. They hate how unorganized they are, and, you know, not a big fan of that. But on the other hand, this might mean that Perturabo is one big obliterator, and obliterators are the coolest thing in the Chaos Marine Codex. So, whatever, I guess. But that'll be all from me. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell and all that. See ya.